Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Tom Singer, and I'm the host of the ERIS webinar series of Gaia, Then and Now. Tonight, we are going to be treated to a most unusual and stunning presentation of a dance work called OMEN by the Dark Sky Aerial Group. A group of women giving creative expression to their relationship to Mother Earth, Gaia, in this fifth presentation of our series. Our series focuses on the mythopoetic response to being alive in a time of crisis all around us, including the climate change crisis. No one is better suited to moderate tonight's event than Melinda Haas. Melinda started her studies and practice of music at the age of 3, when she attended a school that encouraged learning music through movement of the body and improvisation on an instrument. As a natural evolution of her interest in music and dance, Melinda became a piano accompanist for modern dance companies such as Graham and Limon. Melinda composed and taught music for dancers before embarking on her second career as a Jungian analyst. As a Jungian analyst, Melinda sees patients, supervises trainees, writes, and presents about music and the psyche. Welcome, Melinda.
It is my great privilege to introduce to you Elisa Venezia. Elisa grew up in Cancun, Mexico, and moved to the US as a teenager. She spent her years in Mexico submerged in both dance and music, and has lived with the need for artistic expression all her life. The first love of her life was her horse, Palomo. They spent every day together exploring local jungle neighborhoods and interacting with local Mayan women. Elisa always felt drawn to dance and movement when it came to expressing herself. Her first choreography was created at age 9 for a school gathering, which included 4 other dancers. She enjoyed exploring multiple traditions, such as Middle Eastern traditions, African dance, Hawaiian dance, all the way to the American world of ballet and gymnastics. Later, she found expression through fire dance and aerial arts, which is what you're going to see tonight. She has always had an interest in finding creative ways to voice and integrate aspects of our collective experience that feel fragmented. She currently works as a nurse and has submerged herself in the arts of healing. Dark Sky Aerial has become a strong vessel for community collaboration, giving voice to aspects of our humanity that want to be reintegrated. And I give you Elisa Venezia.
Thank you, Tom and Melinda, for a sweet introduction, and thank you for having me. This is such a wonderful event, and I feel very grateful to be here. So I'll just give you a little bit. We're going to show the video, and I'll just give you a little background on Dark Sky Aerial. We're 5 women that came together in 2014 in Flagstaff, Arizona, and we come from all over. And it was just an incredible synergy, the 5 of us coming together. And I mean that in a great way. Really, us coming together and what we've created is definitely greater than the parts. And we all bring our own unique expression. It is a true collaboration. And it's just been a wonderful experience. So we are a 501c3, we're a nonprofit. We've had 2 original works of art. The first one is Opia, the second one is Tilt, and then we remounted Tilt it was, you know, lots of variations when you revisit the same piece. But what's unique about us, I would say, is that there's not one word to encompass all that we bring. We do ambulatory theater, and which for us means that we really try to include our audience into the performance, so that it's not just a sit back and it's happening to you. I find communication is very important. I feel you, feel me, feel you, you know, it goes back and forth. And I feel like art is the same. It shouldn't be just one way. And so we've really explored that avenue where we've included our audience to move through spaces. We, you know, break them apart, you know, change it up. We offer, you know, just different vignettes throughout, and the whole time we're telling a story. So you're really following a story. And I would say that's, you know, we use aerial, we use theater, we use music, we use live music, we use recorded music. And so we've always done live works. And of course, because of COVID, things have changed. And we were approached by Sandcast Media, who's done a lot of work for, you know, REI, and they approached us and asked if we would be interested in collaborating. They wanted to do some meaningful work, and it was just a wonderful collaboration with Sandcast Media and then Firewatch Media, who's a local Flagstaff videographer who has followed our work and has just done a great job expressing us via film. So that's what you're going to see tonight. One thing if everyone's open to it, this is something that we've done with our audiences. Like I said, I think it's really important. We spend a lot of time creating art for the audience. And it's just as important, I think, for the audience to meet us and just to together create a space where we can land our art. And so I would just like to invite you to just take a few minutes, and we can just take a breath together, a couple breaths together. And if you're not feeling this, please feel free to be a witness and just stand back. But I just invite everyone tonight in this space. I think it's really special that we get to use media and to come together, and for topics like this, it's really important to create a collective space. And so just take a moment. And just feel your breath. Just feel your hands. Feel your chest, your legs, maybe where your feet are on the floor. And it's just an invitation to arrive so we can all be here together. And this piece was really created out of what I felt was a collective need for us to come together during COVID when all this was happening. And so I just would like to extend some compassion out to these times that we're in. And obviously since COVID, there's a lot more going on. And so I would just like to extend some compassion out to everyone suffering. And I'd like to extend that out to our planet. And then I'd also like to take a moment to just bring that compassion back to our own selves. So I just really appreciate you all for being here. And with that, I hope that you enjoy this piece of art that we've created for you. Okay, so the first part of the story. Everyday life is just happening. The world turns, everything settles in constant motion, a constant hum. One rhythm for all. You either move with it or you get left behind. While sometimes the pulling of the rhythm doesn't seem fair, it also offers a sense of reliability. There's comfort in the mundane. And beauty is there if we're willing to adjust our eyes, step back a little, and recognize the concert taking place as everyone makes their own sound, and finding little acts of love in the space between moments.
Dark Sky Aerial is a group of best friends who wanted to make their dreams come true in art and movement. Aerial dance is 100% a focus, but I think that's also the difference of Dark Sky, is that it's not just like trick, like show, sexy, like it's not Cirque, it's not showgirl, it's not any of that. Like it's a story, like it is just theater and it's storytelling.
And I think that that's a really big strength, and something that I really love about our company is how we use imagery to evoke memories and experiences in people, in our viewers. And that's going to be different for every single person, and it's our job to kind of like lay out this suggestion of a memory or an interpretation that they can then connect to their own life.
So right now I am writing up the storyline for a dance film that we've decided to do instead of live theater, which we've always done in the past. Well, it goes storyline, music, and then just envisioning the space. And we get to be in the Grand Canyon, which is really fitting for the story because it has to do with just seeing how small we are and how powerful nature is. And so that is part of the storyline, is just navigating that. So OMEN is our third production, and it's very different from the first two.
Opia was just gritty. Like Opia was so raw. I think that like so much of Opia was, what do we want to say? Who are we as dark skin? Who are we together? And like, I don't know, we're like learning how to walk sort of. And then Till was massive. It was huge, it was loud, it was big. We had a cast of what, like 50 people. And so after 2 years of that, we all had to like go back inward.
Well, we had always wanted to do a film, like a smaller cast, and it just feels like the right time. Like we all had this kind of weird slowing down time and coming inside time, just having to stay inside and then like slowly coming back out and being like, okay, what can we create together again?
That's really what OMEN is we wanted to do vertical dance, harness dance. We wanted to find new spaces, create new movement, create new stories, and ideally do that in a much smaller way.
So on the wall, this is just an idea. The shot will begin with all the dancers at different levels. So we'll start there. We're all doing our own thing, but then we all come together with the same movement. You know, even if it is just the gesture, but it just really showcasing that rhythm.
There's this music, which we'll make longer, but it might be like this, like. So it's kind of like ominous a little bit.
Yeah.
We start to play with you like you're our little cat toy. And we're just throwing you up and catching you and tossing you, and you're just like our little doll.
So here on the wall, that's where we'll have, you know, that playfulness interaction. So you're turning into that main character.
Yeah.
So it's how we interact and play with you. Mm-hmm. And then from there, there's going to be this kind of like tone, something that happens, and it would be equivalent to March with COVID. It's like, huh? Or getting your labs and something's wrong and doesn't look right. You get this kind of like icky feeling of like something's coming. And what I envision is like red silks just kind of dripping out of the cracks towards the three dancers down below. And it's just this feeling, but then denial happens, of course, and it's like, oh, there's no COVID. It was just a mistake with the labs. Like, it's just a little crick in my neck, you know, or whatever it is. A cog in the wheel happens. The unexpected. Results of cancer. A bike crash. A virus that could kill millions on the planet. Sometimes something that does not fit into the story we are in begins to create this ominous feeling. We realize we were not standing where we thought we were on the map. It's a moment of disorientation and everything spins. We actively refuse and dismiss this information, blocking events from our awareness in hopes that nothing will threaten the cozy nest that we have unexpectedly built on the peaceful branches of this mundane life.
So I think my character is really supposed to represent all of us and the kind of trials and tribulations that every human goes through. You know, we're all humans, we all have these experiences that are really difficult that we want to ignore, but that we eventually have to come to terms with. And I think the most current thing is like how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted people's lives, and taking in that emotion and putting that into dance and putting that into the emotions that I'm feeling.
Whose family has not had someone who's died, or a lover that has left, or had cancer, or like, we all have those things. And this was just something that came that hit us all collectively. It feels awesome to just turn inside out and show that emotion and just express it and let people know, like, you're not the only one. Like, we're all doing this together simultaneously, side by side. What I really focus on is just is like evoking emotion. That's more important to me than someone following a storyline from beginning to end. What I want to see with the camera on the wall, like, we're in sync, but the camera now, I want it to be tilted just to kind of express that something's off. The music is a little off, the camera angle is a little tilted. And we're going about our thing, but then I want Myra's foot like slipping or something, you know, or like just a couple back and forth of like, oh, we're together, but then shit, something's happening.
On this in particular, what is each person's like fight, flight, freeze syndrome? Like, what do you do? I fight and can pretend like nothing's happening. What do you do?
Freeze, for sure.
Okay, what do you do?
Oh, I think I'm a little bit of both.
Something we're planning to do tomorrow is kind of put ourselves out there to each other and bring a story to the table of something that's happened in your life that you've tried to push away or that you've had to approach and deal with. And so I think that's going to be really a solidifying moment for all of us tomorrow, to share those stories and really like know what each other is thinking about in this time that we're filming.
So now we're face to face. It's raw, undeniable. There's no more room for extra stories or to cover up the fantasy that we're in control. And this is the no, the not me, fuck this, as if the entire world was boiled down to one. Just you, in survival. Can't even look up. This is the very last push to hang on to when we now sense that we are gonna have to let go.
I just have always dreamed of being on these big walls and what that would feel like and how amazing it would feel.
Well, how does it feel?
Totally different than I thought it would.
Did it. We did it up.
Wow. Thank you guys so much. This is so cool. This is such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and something that I've dreamed about for so long but never thought would happen ever. This is just a really special moment, and we've worked really hard to get just to this moment, and I just wanted to give us all a moment to connect before we go over the edge. So take a minute to stand comfortably and just take a few breaths. And turn your head and slowly look around in all directions, especially behind you. It's in my body. I know just what to do. I've been preparing for this moment for my whole life. And then you get there and it's like
this whole other set of feelings that you have to kind of contend with.
It feels just like the bank building because I haven't looked down, I'm just looking over. And I'm just looking at Myra, and so I feel fine.
I was like, okay, I don't think I can do this. I'm gonna have to tell the rest of the company that I'm not gonna be in this show. Orient yourself in the surrounding space. Take note of any boundaries, such as an edge, or a clearing, or water. Notice any plant or animal life nearby. Notice what sounds you hear, what smells fill the air, any warmth or coolness, and any colors that stand out. I had to go from, in that moment, believing that I didn't want to do that, to remembering all the work that we've done and that I do want to do it. And it's visualizing myself up there, coming to terms with my fear, not like confronting or facing it, but just honoring it as part of like a natural feeling that we all feel, and remembering that you are safe and you wouldn't do it if it wasn't safe. And then also knowing that I have this movement in my body. When you're done scanning your environment, face forward once again and return your attention to your body. Sense how your feet rest on the ground, the breeze in your hair, your belly, and any tension you hold there. And bring your attention slowly down your body. Notice each sensation: warmth, coolness, relaxation, tightness, softness, pressure, energy, or numbness.
Realizing that we're in free fall. It feels like an eternity. This is the moment, the first moment that we are completely here, revealed and open, allowing what we have so deeply protected to kiss the outside. We are not the only one.
Our title for our piece, OMEN, was really speaking to me in how it was like challenging me personally. Those moments where you really want to take the next step and there's this moment of uncertainty and the unknown, and you're stepping off into it and you're making that decision if you're going to do it or not. It was so dizzying to look back behind me and see the landscape turned upside down and the sky down below me. The word breathtaking can't even describe it enough of how small I felt on that big wall. That's the whole idea behind this piece, is like being able to look out, being ready to turn and surrender to this vast unknown, and like stepping out of your comfort zone and stepping towards this future potential of what you have to create or what's next for you.
It was definitely the scariest experience, because just suspending in that space, and you know, we're not climbing, we're not descending, just having to be okay with being in that discomfort. You know, that's where a lot of transformation can happen, is if you're willing to sit in discomfort. I know we've all had people in our communities and families that have had a really hard time this year. One of the messages in OMEN is like kind of just sitting in that space of being able to look someone else in the eye or be there with them in their emotion, especially with Myra being kind of the main character. I feel like that's what the other dancers in the film are trying to kind of hold, is Myra in that space.
You're inviting that struggle to sit with you, and you're going to figure out how to get through it. And I think that's the falling back, is that surrender, and also like symbolizing surrendering, but having kind of like a safety net or people around you in a community, because you're not alone in whatever it is you might be going through.
Here she's walking slow motion to the edge of the cliff, and she has her hand full of that dirt. And over the cliff, she's just slowly letting it out. She keeps trying to resist whatever's coming, and it's this ugly thing, and finally it comes in and she faces it. But then that's the moment, surprisingly, of freedom. And just this breath in, and it's like this new life is actually coming. And now we go back to the scene where we're running. She's running and people are coming after her. It feels like, you know, everyone's out to get me, and, you know, everything is against me. And then she realizes, she stops, she turns around. All these people are just ready to embrace her. And then we go back to the wall and we're just like reaching for each other. I just want it to be big. Like, it's like finding yourself with power, you know? You're just like, oh, like connected. This is like, it's powerful.
So it's just really our perception that changes things. Instead of waiting for the world to change so that we can feel better, it's learning to love and accept ourselves. We feel better and extend that to the world. And I think if there's one thing that I would hope people get out of the film is just to evoke a sense of empathy and for our own selves, because I feel like that's where it's most important. Beauty in the mundane, empathy. The mundane is made up of all these tiny moments. Control and resistance feels mute. We are all in this together, and we reach out to connect, to feel the connection. There's comfort in the mundane. Beauty is there if we're willing to adjust our eyes, step back a little, and recognize the concert that's taking place as we all make our own sound in this big song, finding the little acts of love in the space between moments.
That's a wrap.
So the thing about dance and music is that it says it all without words. I'm a little hesitant to throw words into this experience, but I will. Could there be any more perfect image of Gaia than the Grand Canyon? And could there be any more respectful and gentle way to relate to her, Mother Earth, than this piece? I don't think so. So as Jungians, we are often looking for pairs of opposites or pairs of juxtapositions in order to push against the either or. We're always trying to find something that connects, the both and. Because in the both and is the place of transformation. And this piece gives us so many pairs. I thought that it's important that we take note of them. Human and nature, personal and archetypal, individual and collective, earth and air, and beauty in the mundane, and don't forget beauty in the magnificent. I'm going to start by asking Elisa some questions that have come to us. And I want us to just keep thinking about these pairs that that OMEN has put together for us and how that expresses the potential for transformation. So my first question when I first saw the piece was how we think of dance, and particularly modern dance, the shoes off, as so intimately connected to ground, to earth. And here, everything is upside down or sideways, and the elements are entirely different that Dark Sky is working with. Now they're working with air. Now they're if their feet are on earth, on rock, it's not down, it's not on the ground. So Elisa, talk to us about that.
Yeah, as you can see, it's much easier, I think, than using words, you know, to use our bodies to express all the things because it is so complex. Yeah, even just watching that video again, it's just, you know, it really takes me back to being in the canyon, being together, the elements. It wasn't easy. And it was also, you know, it really brought us together. But as far as the element of air, I can speak to it as a dancer. For me personally, choreographing in the air is a very sensual process because it's really trying to inhabit my body and also explore another element at the same time. And I think that it's like an orientation to discovery versus an orientation to a goal. And so it's bringing my body into a new environment and using my senses to feel and explore what can my body do in this element. And I guess what comes to mind with that question, I was just in Mexico and I was in the ocean, but like if you're walking in the ocean and the water is up to your knees and you're trying to walk like you would normally walk down the beach, it just takes so much effort and it's unnatural. And so it's just always fun to play. And I think water is more tangible, so it makes sense. But if you just start allowing the water, like just moving with those restrictions, you find yourself more pointy and moving your body in different ways and, coming together, exploring that movement and what your body does at the same time. And I think it reminds me of like this African, it's like an old African proverb, like go ahead and be the tree, or the leaves, but don't forget that you're also the roots. And so I think there's something very, very beautiful about being able to hold both at the same time, being in my body and being in the air and exploring what the air has to offer. And I think for me, choreographing an aerial was a lot of that, was a lot of just exploring instead of going up with a goal. You have to learn the skills and things to be safe to climb up a rope. But once you're up there, it's really, the magic, I think, is really finding and exploring that space as opposed to, taking your body up and going up with a goal. Then it looks more like a gymnastics routine, versus really bringing all of it together. And I think that's being in the Grand Canyon definitely had that element. It's like hard to even explain because all the emotions of like dangling on the side of a 700-foot cliff and of course the motions are these big, you see our big arms, like going out and feeling out and looking overhead. And we actually had a condor that came over at one point and was checking us out, which was amazing. Just to feel like you get to visit and be a part of that. And also I think, I feel that it's like connecting with that part of ourselves also. We are the earth, we are the elements. I have, air in and out of my lungs. I have heat that keeps my body right at that perfect temperature. I'm mostly made of water. I'm physical form, and so it's just really being able to balance both of those at the same time. And I think that that's a really sensual process. So, and I do want to say that for this piece, Joni Garcia did our choreography. So she may have a completely different, answer to this, choreographing in the air. It would be fun to pose that to her and see what she has to say. But yeah, I think working with the elements is very sensual.
So, question here from Miriam.
Mm-hmm.
How was this process transformational for you, Elisa, if it was?
For me personally, that's a great question. Thank you. It was very transformational, somewhat even cathartic in different ways. I would say 3 major ways. Usually our art is in spaces. So we create like the Monte Vista as a hotel, and we actually started our piece on the side of a bank building. We went through the parking lot. We took people through the alley into the lobby. We separated them and put them in hotel rooms. swapped them and then took them up to the rooftop and had a crane, you know, so it's like being like taking people in and out of these spaces, and it's tangible, it's right there, you know, to choreograph it, to see it, to feel it. And film was a completely different, that's like an element of its own. So that was a really transformational process for me, to switch my mind to a camera's eye and to be able to be the audience, or for the camera to take on a character of its own, which I thought was really interesting. So that was transformational. And then of course, being in the Grand Canyon, and I've never been at those heights. I've climbed in the past. I've done a lot of aerial. I've been at, you know, 40 feet, maybe at the most, you know, as a performer. But this is something completely different, especially in climbing, because you don't have a rope that goes all the way down to the ground. So you can't climb down, you have to climb up and out, which was very different. And so there's something so vulnerable about going over the edge, as Joni, I feel like, so eloquently described and shared her vulnerability of going over the edge. And there has to be a level of surrender. And I think anytime we, you know, push up against a moment to have to surrender, is there's always like some energy of freedom that happens there. And so just being able to embrace that fear, because it's not a conquering of the fear, just shutting down and going, you know, like getting off on the wall, and just, you know, you have to really feel and breathe and trust. And that is just feeling so vulnerable. I mean, I remember looking up and it's like I'm hanging by a thread, literally. Like that little rope, if something happened to it or rubbed on a rock, you know. And of course our riggers were amazing. They had everything guarded, but still you can't help but, you know, be 500 feet above the ground and you're hanging by a thread. So that was really transformational for me, just being having that opportunity to be in that situation. And then I think the most important one was our group together. It just, I don't remember the number of hours that we were on the wall, but we were in the baking sun. We did all of this over 3-4 days total. So we spent hours upon hours in the baking sun. We got up when the piece where we're laying on the ground, it was freezing cold outside. It was, I think, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. And how we all came together. We have little blurbs of it somewhere, but it's like we all shaded each other. We all huddled together and held each other, and we were just so close. And just that love and that camaraderie that a lot of times when there's stressful situations, people start bickering or, you know, things come up, but we really just were able to hold each other through, you know, all of our fears and the uncomfortableness and all of it. And so I really feel like that's what's unique about our art, is that we were able to take all of those parts and it translates back into the piece itself. And so really when we're up there, we are vulnerable. And in, you know, other pieces that we've done, oftentimes, you know, if there's a rage piece, it's the person writing that and being that is really moving through those feelings and being vulnerable. And so I think that's what makes it unique too. It's not just performance, you know, like you put a part of you aside and then just perform. So I hope that answers your question. It's very multidimensional. It was a big experience.
So Tom asks, what if the fear is collective? That we face not only the dangers and death of our individual lives, but at another level are facing the denial and fear of extinction anxiety, of the death or annihilation of life as we know it on the planet, on Gaia, Earth.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great topic, a great question. I feel like for me, with this piece, actually with all the pieces, but I'll speak to this piece. It's really putting feelers out and getting a sense in the collective as to what is going on. I'm watching people around me suffer. I work in healthcare, so that was really, you know, up close and personal. And so it's just witnessing people's experiences and seeing what's happening out there and also what's happening inside me. And I notice a lot of times, you know, when we get afraid, there's this polarization that happens, you know, people, should they get vaccinated? Should they not get vaccinated? You know, it's just a lot of, actually, it makes me think of this. I have it right here. I don't know if you guys can see this. Is it a rabbit or a duck? And I think that's the thing, is I think it's learning to allow it to be both at the same time.
This is the either or the both and thing that I think you address so beautifully in OMEN, is that it has to be both and.
Right. And I feel like that definitely applies to our own selves. And so in this piece, I mean, I like to leave it open enough where people can see it and view it and get whatever they feel out of it. The whole point of it is just to feel. But I feel like it's really important to, when we are able to deal with our own fear, then we're able to accept it and hold space for someone else. And then collectively, we can also do that. But if I'm shaming my own self or cutting off my own self, I'm also cutting off those around me. And it translates into our relationship to the planet, honestly. It's just a reflection. And so I really feel that it's important for us to, that's why I say empathy for our own selves, is because I feel that if we can embrace our own fears, and how, you know, I think it was Carrie said, just being able to sit with it. It's not, you know, getting rid of it or turning it to happy, or how can you give it a pill to make it go away? It's just really embracing it. And I feel like that's what we did as a group, going back to the last question, was just, we were really able to create that community space collectively, that to hold space for that fear. And I really feel that there's a lot of healing in that. And there's just a huge illusion to think that we're separate from each other, separate from the planet. I just feel like that's so outdated, honestly. I mean,
and you put yourselves in this collective, archetypal, huge place, so that it is no longer only personal or only individual. Just by where you place yourselves, it becomes a conversation with the earth, with Gaia. It becomes infinitely bigger than in the studio, for example.
Yeah. And I feel like to have a conversation with Gaia, so to speak, that's an element of surrender.
For sure.
You know, and it's not, I think, I guess what comes to mind is like if you have a page, a paper, like a page in a book, and there's a story being told, we just jump from word to word to word. But if you just start to focus on the spaces in between the word and the actual paper that the words are sitting on, you're gonna, that's the surrender of sinking into the story. And it's an embodiment of that story. And so surrender is not necessarily giving up everything and just, you know, 3 sheets to the wind or whatever. I think it's more like being able to hold, going back to holding both at the same time, the words and the page, and being able to know how to move back and forth between those, and doing that for ourselves and then collectively, I think really is what's going to make an impact on our planet, because it's made an impact the other way, thinking that we're separate. Yeah. And I see this in healthcare, you know, how we treat our own bodies and how we manage our own health, our own nature in our own bodies through health is exactly how we respond to nature, or the feminine in general. I know that's a loaded word, but, and I don't mean, you know, man, woman, but just the feminine aspects of life and giving and the uncontrollable, you know, what we can't control, and learning how to build a relationship with what we can't control. So I think that's and I feel like through art, it's just a wonderful way to evoke that emotion and invite the audience to do that. And more importantly, to do that together. I love when we have, you know, 1,000 people coming through, or 300 at a time, and everybody's going through this together. There's something very healing and beautiful about that. Yeah.
So Miriam asks, after flying through the air and then hitting the rock cliff, what did that feel like? That contrast between flying and landing?
Oh, it's a great feeling. I can feel it in my body. I wish I could package it. It's actually a very soft landing because the air just lends to the softness of the landing. It's just that beautiful blending. So it's, of course, if you don't land right, it can hurt, you know, it's happened. But the landing is just, it's like the air just absorbs that shock, and it's just very graceful.
Well, and does the landing, if you're landing horizontal, does it have gravity?
Well, you do, because you're on your pendulum, so it keeps you on a pendulum. I mean, or you can this way, you can pendulate this way, right? Or you pendulate side to side. But it always, as long as your feet are landing, you know, instead of the back of you or something, but it just, it's like being in slow motion, like in a dream. And so it just is a completely different movement.
When I first saw it, it reminded me so much of spacewalks, astronauts.
Right. Yeah, that's how I imagine it when you see them jumping on the moon.
Yes.
It feels very much like that. And so it lends for more space because you're really slowing down. So when you jump off, that's why you can do 1 backflip or 2 backflips. And we had one of our artists could do 3, but you just learn to, you know, it's just very different. It just slows everything down, slow motion. Yeah.
Which also is respectful of Mother Earth, isn't it?
Yeah, they're gentle movements. It's not like a
right.
It's very fluid, very, if you move.
How long did it take her to carve out this canyon?
My gosh, I wish I knew the answer to that. I should, but just beyond me. And every day, it never gets old.
So Ron asks 2 questions. Do the ropes take on the aspect of characters in the narrative, as do the cameras, i.e. as catchers? Are catchers there in our collective fear? That's one question. And I'll give you the other one. Are the shadows on the wall pictographic, i.e. connecting us with our mythic ancestors from prehistoric antiquity. Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, I just love that. That's fantastic. I hadn't thought of either of those. I love the shadows, and there was obviously that maybe we could just use the shadows, and that was really, really just a beautiful surprise. But I never thought of the ropes that way. I know the videographers, we didn't want their ropes, because when they were underneath us, we didn't want their ropes visual. So they actually climbed down and harnessed or carabined themselves in, or cammed themselves in, I should say, on a ledge underneath us. So they didn't have ropes. But I love that element. I hadn't thought of that, but I felt that it was my safety net. And I almost felt like it was like my umbilical cord, just if that got cut, I was done. So, yeah, I really love that image. I think that's a great image of a safety net through our fear, which I do believe we all have. We're all connected. Yeah.
And the shadows connecting to the shadows as hint of our prehistory.
Yeah. I really like that.
Poetic.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That was really beautiful.
So Mary asks, what a joyous performance. It evoked a desire to reclaim my own creative body expression in free dance. Any suggestions? I'm 75, but love moving.
That's wonderful. That is like such a gift. I mean, I personally just think it's good to just move, put music on and just move. I think so often we think it has to be, like I was saying before, it's like just instead of being goal oriented, or I have to go to a class, or I have to, check this box so that I can do this. It's in you. Dance has been around since humans have been around. Dance and music. It is part of our innate expression. It's, we have bodies, they want to move. And if it wants to move, I say, just move it. Just put music on, something that inspires you, and just move. And that's how I started aerial personally. I just, I would put music on and I would just start moving. I think that's, it's never too late. That's for certain. I think it's wonderful.
Do you think you started aerial when you got onto Paloma?
Oh, that's interesting. It's possible. I always had that. I mean, like the acrobatic, I would stand on him or jump on from behind.
But just the air. And
yeah. It's definitely a different, yeah, I can feel that in my body when you say that. So, yeah.
So Tom asks, in today's world, we cannot deny or defy gravity as a way of transcending what is happening to the planet.
We
It's not
deny.
Exactly a question, but we can't deny or defy gravity as a way of transcending what is happening to the planet. We're stuck in gravity, on Earth, and we have to
do our work. Yeah, and it's again going back to, like, as Carrie said, just being able to sit with that discomfort, sitting with each other. I think the discomfort in ourselves, but we really need to start extending that out to one another. It's we're not separate. We're not separate from each other. We're not separate from the planet. We're one big nervous system, really. Something can't happen over there and think that over here we're not affected. It just doesn't work that way. We can pretend,
you know, we create all these mechanisms and controls and, you know, all these things to make it think like we're safe or isolated or we have control over it, but we really don't. And I feel like this is a time where it's like going off the ledge, you know, like there's a surrender that can happen because we're not the planet. We're so connected through internet and technology, and you know, there's a war going on, and we're not unaffected. And I think it's time. I see this in healthcare, totally different note, but chronic pain. That's a perfect example of how oftentimes our, you know, these traumas and these all these things that we try to cut out, they show up in our bodies. Our bodies don't lie. That's why it's important to move and dance and move those things out. But it shows up in our bodies. You don't have a world full of chronic pain and an opioid epidemic and say that we're fine.
And isn't the earth in chronic pain?
Yes, and we feel it in our bodies. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
David asks, omen is such an ominous word. For me, your piece offered a story of community, initiation, and finally launch. The omen felt also like a portent. Do you see omens as being both positive and having both positive and negative aspects?
Absolutely.
Here's that both and again.
Yeah. Yeah, ominous, I feel like, is just something that enters the field that you cannot control, and you have a sense that it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and is it good or bad? Is it a good omen, bad omen? It's really our relationship to it. How are we going to relate to what we can't control? That's what makes it, is it good, is it bad for us? So I think omens can definitely be good. I mean, it has both connotations, absolutely.
Well, and they inform.
Mm-hmm.
And if they inform, that's inherently good or progressive or
right.
Information that we need to have.
Exactly. I like that. It does inform us. Yeah.
So the first music, which was ominous, tell us about that music.
So we used a couple different artists, but my brother is the one who does our music. So it's just he and we just have such a wonderful relationship that I feel like we don't need to even, I can just move my hands and he knows he feels what I'm saying. And so it's just it was a really great collaboration with my brother. And really it was just taking sounds and pieces of music and looping them, because that's the way we choreograph. We kind of put our feelers out collectively and we're like, what's wanting to be said? And so we pull that in, and it's like, okay, we have a story, like a topic. And then we kind of create a story. And so it's like we have the story, and now we want to put music to that story. So I would share the story with my brother and tell him of these parts of this character and what's happening. And I would show him pieces of music. And so he's like, is this what you meant? But he really feels that. And so it's just so beautiful that it really comes from that place of feeling the story and the parts. And so, yeah, he did a great job. And our project manager did all the music licensing, which was just so much work. But it definitely took a village. Yeah.
So before we end, what would you say is your mission statement or goal for your work as Dark Sky Ariel?
That's a great question.
I feel like it's everything that we've talked about so far, you know, in some way, that really, I think, like going back to the, you know, the piece of paper in a book with the story, you know, the words on it, just giving us all an opportunity to sink down into the spaces in between the words together. And I see that as our humanity, because oftentimes there's, you know, all this polarization and things that we separate each other about. And that's like the first piece, or the second piece we did was Tilt, and it was during the elections, and I saw all this, you know, families being broken and all this back and forth, and you know, and this is a hard one to explain, but it's so often I feel that it's, you know, we're educating on all these differences and how we're different and all these different, and I think that that is so important, and in no way am I saying that is not important. And also I feel that it's important to connect with where we are all the same, and where what we do have in common, which is that piece of paper. We are all on this planet. We are all a humanity. We are all here together. If our planet goes, we all go. Like we're not, and that's what I mean by we're not separate. We all have our own individual lives, our individual expressions, our experiences. But you know, your lover leaves, I don't care where you're at on this planet, you're going to feel pain in your heart. You know, like just those universal pieces. And that's the layer that I enjoy just sharing with our audience, is just to give everyone a place where we can all land together. I know we have so many ways we're different, so many ways we're unique and better or not, or this or that.
Even if we're landing like this.
Right. Even if we're landing like this. So it's really just bringing, I guess the easiest way would just to say is just to, you know, building like a human community, and just giving us a chance to just be together and just be, and have, it's like the 3 human rights, to have the right to be, to have the right to belong, and the right to become. Just those 3 things. And we can do that together. And I feel like art is a great platform for that. It's an invitation, you know.
Certainly is.
That's a long explanation, but that's the best I can do without music.
So let's give Tom the last word here, as he says, I think our salvation as a species lies with our capacity to engage in mythopoetic imagination creation. OMEN does that in an extraordinary way.
Thank you. That's really beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you, Elisa.
Yeah, thank you.
Such a huge experience for all of us.
Thank you. Yeah, but we're very grateful to be a part of this, and yeah, just to have it land. That's great.
Even if it's landing
Even
like
if
this.
it's landing like this.
Thank you.
It's really hard to wrap up something as dynamic and exciting and creative as what Liza and Melinda have done for us, what OMEN has done for us. It's just I think when we first imagined doing this series, I must say we didn't think that we would have such extraordinary, beautiful and moving presentations, and tonight's was just absolutely that. And so I want to thank Melinda and Eliza and Dark Sky for this beautiful presentation. For those of you who want to continue participating, as Eliza made it very clear, she loves the interaction with the audience, and it doesn't, and needs it as part of the creative process. It doesn't end with tonight. You can continue to engage in this, in OMEN, with us by participating in our forum, which is on eris.org archipelago, and there's a way that you can go to the forum and share your thoughts and your comments. You can also go to the galleries, which is in the same place on Archipelago, and post images that came to you during tonight's presentation. So we really invite you to continue the creative process of OMEN with Dark Sky Productions and with us by going to Archipelago. And I'd like to remind you that the 6th presentation in our series will be a month from now with Jeffrey Keel, who's a Jungian analyst, but he was a climate scientist before becoming a Jungian analyst, and he's integrated his work as a climate scientist with his further development as a Jungian analyst, and has an extraordinary paper and video that he's going to share with us. And I must say, based on how these presentations have been going, I don't think that Gaia Then and Now will end with that presentation. I think we'll keep this going in forms that we don't quite know yet. But tonight's presentation just is such an encouragement to continue this kind of conversation and presentation, which I think is quite different from what we get in our day-to-day news feeds. And we need more of this and less of that. So thank you all very much for participating, and please go to Archipelago forum or gallery, or let us know what you think, or your responses to this project, and of course, specifically to tonight's presentation. And again, deep thanks to Melinda and to Eliza for this extraordinary presentation.